up now. Yeah. Put 'em 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 up now. Yeah.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to another Q&A session. Happy to be here. How is everybody doing? Let me know in the chat. Always curious. We made some progress. We've done a lot of work this is 6 sessions. This is session number 7. Done a lot of work in this period of time. All right, I want to hear how you all are doing. Let me know in the chat. What's the latest and greatest? What's the progress you found? Maybe you continue to struggle. But sometimes the struggle is where you continue to learn more about the issues you're facing, which is part of the process, right? Sometimes we make estimates. We have an ideas of what's going to help us make some progress, and we're wrong, right? And in being wrong, we continue to learn, because this is a game that has a lot of dynamics to it, and can be complicated to figure out. So, as I said, throw in the chat. Let me know how you're doing, what you're making progress on, and I'm going to get to your questions here shortly, after I talk about a very important topic, one that I would say a lot of traders vastly underestimate. Last week we talked about overconfidence, another problem that traders vastly underestimate. I wouldn't say that this one's as impactful as overconfidence, because overconfidence is probably the most destructive. But burnout is a big problem that can steadily erode the ground beneath your feet, and really create some significant problems. Now, the reason that burnout is such a big problem is because traders just generally are not aware that their mind is starting to get a little crusty, a little toasty, a little burned out. And what happens when your mind starts to become a little bit crusty? Well, you lose the ability to make progress. You lose the ability to execute your strategy. It becomes harder to translate your thoughts into actions, to plan, to have the energy you need to go through your pre-market routine. You need energy to perform. It's the bottom line, right? It cannot happen any other way. Now, just like we've talked a lot about in these sessions, when that emotional system becomes overactive, right, it creates a whole host of problems. namely all the ones I just mentioned. But when you're lacking too much energy, the exact same things can happen, except for the opposite reason. In one case, you've got too much emotion, too much energy. In this case, you have too little of it. Is it noticeable to you when you're lacking energy, when that burnout is starting to kind of take hold? And look, we can think about burnout much like with professional athletes. When they work themselves incredibly hard, it's productive for a while, right? They're factually getting stronger, more agile, higher levels of precision, right? But then at a certain point, when the body is unable to recover and grow stronger, right? It's two things. It's not just about the recovery, right? As traders right now, you're trying to recover the energy you expended and have that translate into you being more capable, you being stronger, you having more precision with your technique and in your execution. So it's recovery plus increased strength, capacity, skill, etc. But when that recovery doesn't allow you to be as strong the next day, right? And it's rarely is it kind of as black and white, where you go from feeling great one day and then just like completely burned out the next, right? It's much more common that the burnout is more progressive, right? Day over day, as the grind grinds you down, it becomes harder for you to recover. And when it's harder for you to recover, you start to have malfunctioning, right, in your mind, right, in the part of the brain that's responsible for being able to make decisions, to plan, to prepare, to utilize the knowledge that you have, right? Burnout zaps your ability to utilize all that. So it's vital that you recognize it. And as traders, many of you are vastly underestimating how much energy you are burning on a daily basis, right? Being glued to the charts. And you're burning more energy when you're actually in positions, right? Think about how much intensity you feel when you're actually in a position. And if you're staring at the charts, unable to really kind of separate yourself, you might be burning energy really inefficiently, not getting anything for it. Being in front of the charts and observing price action and seeing how the indicators that you use impair your judgment or aid your judgment. There's a lot of learning that can happen. So to me, so long as you're using your energy in a way that is allowing you to learn, to grow, to improve, well, then it has the potential to be productive, right? So long as you have the opportunity to really recover and be stronger the following day. So, start examining the places where you're burning energy inefficiently. Start examining your cool down. Your cool down is, I'd say, kind of your primary weapon against burnout. Your ability to separate trading from the rest of your life is really important, right? You need to be able to put trading away and then give yourself time to decompress, to relax, go have some fun, enjoy yourself, right? And then recover, sleep, and come back the following day in a stronger position. A lot of traders end the day and then just kind of go on with their lives. But what happens is the mind kind of continues to grind on trades. You keep thinking about things, especially if it was a day where you lost a bunch or a day where you won a bunch, right? There's just the mind stays active, right? It's not really resting. And look, many of you are trying to learn a lot, right? There's a huge mountain that you're trying to climb. And so you feel this need to constantly be learning, and there's a lot of motivation for it. And I'm all for that, right? I'm not trying to deter you from devoting large amounts of time during the day to making this thing happen, to making it work, right? So just because you're all in, you're spending 14, 15 hours a day on trading, thinking about trading, involved in the markets in some way, shape, or form, does not mean that you're going to burn out tomorrow. But it does mean that you will burn out eventually. And so recognizing the early warning signs of it helps you to get ahead of it, because the more severe the burnout, the longer it's going to take to recover, right? Very, very simple. And sometimes it's a bit exponential. You catch the burnout early, hypothetically, maybe it takes you a day or two to recover, or even like an afternoon. Don't catch the burnout till later. Maybe it actually is going to cost you now 2 weeks. to fully get yourself back. And who is really going to give themselves 2 weeks to recover? I mean, very, very few of you are going to actually do that unless you're forced to, because the results have been so bad that you have no other option, right? You just need like a hard reset. But who wants to get to that point, right? That to me is weak, right? You need to be more responsible for your energy, more responsible for recognizing the warning signs that you're struggling. So being able to distinguish those early warning signs is vital. And I'll give you one example from a client who, they always had the energy to trade. Okay. That was never an indication of burnout. Like, doesn't matter, proverbial like limping into the trading day, in a way kind of parallels to the body, they're going to trade. It doesn't matter. Like but you force them at that time when they're, beginning to get burned out to go through their full pre-market prep. Now, all of a sudden, it's not even the act of doing it. They will still do it, but they're not going to want to as much. So for this client, the distinguishing characteristic of burnout at the beginning of it was the simple lack of desire for doing the pre-market prep. All right. They would still do it and go through the motions, but it wasn't as crisp. And you could tell they were kind of just not into it as much. And so that was the indicator. And when that would occur, to get ahead of it, that's where they were looking for times intraday to take a bit more breaks. But then also, maybe taking a full day off to recover. I would argue that those days off, you get paid for. You get paid because if your performance is steadily declining, right? Factually speaking, your edge is decreasing, or it's actually now negative. The day off you get paid for because it's going to be the thing that's going to help to, jumpstart your performance again, kind of get you back where it was before. So if it's helping you to avoid losses, avoid mistakes, avoid setbacks, and there's opportunities to grow, and improve beyond that, I mean, you get paid for those days off. You get paid for that time off. So distinguishing characteristic, what is the factor that is going to allow you to know very clearly that you have a problem that you have to deal with? Catch it early, you recover fast. You don't see those early signs, burnout gets worse, and then that emotionality starts to really increase. Sometimes traders have setbacks, right? You may have been making some progress based on the things I've talked about here in these sessions, but then continue to work so hard, right? Because applying a mental game strategy means that you're now working harder intraday, burning more energy. So for all intents and purposes, you could be actually making some solid progress here. Maybe not even from a P&L standpoint, but just from an execution or performance standpoint, a mental game standpoint, making real progress. But then because you're burning so much energy, you now start to trail off in that progress because you don't have the energy to sustain it. Whereas you take a day or two off, energy comes right back, and now you pick right back up from where you were, and the progress continues. But instead, what happens for a lot of traders, because they don't see the burnout, they start to have those setbacks, and it appears like something's going wrong with their mental game, the things that they were just working on, and their ability to handle losses, their ability to avoid overconfidence, their ability to avoid FOMO. All right. But it actually has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with the fact that you don't have the energy to sustain the improvements you've made. Right. So burnout can affect things in a lot of different ways. So again, look for those early warning signs. You can kind of head off a lot of problems. Last kind of point I'll make here, and then I'm going to start getting to your questions, whether it's about burnout or anything else. I'll say prioritize the ones about burnout early. But yeah, so you can start kind of posting your questions in there into the chat now. The last point that I'll make here is to look for opportunities throughout the trading day to relax a little bit, take a break. These small breaks throughout the trading day really do add up. They delay maybe the onset of burnout. They maybe prevent entirely from you feeling that like real heavy, drained feeling at the end of the day. If it allows you to continue to trade well, maybe you hit your daily targets. You're better able to stop trading when you recognize that the market is just not, kind of providing opportunities for you, and makes sense to just go take a break, right? So there's a lot of benefits to taking these small breaks. So again, think about the time frame with which you typically trade. If you trade on a 5-minute chart, 15-minute chart, right, you've got an opportunity to take breaks very, very regularly. Right? If you're scalping on a 30-second to 1-minute chart, like, it's going to be harder for you to take breaks, but it's still essential, especially because for you, high intensity to be able to scalp and trade like that. So maybe for you, it's like every hour you're looking for a 1 to 5 minute break. Okay. And we're not talking, it doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. Just like stand up, get away from the charts, take a few deep breaths, bathroom, food, outside, water, something, right? Just to kind of help refresh you, or spin around in your chair, close your eyes for 5 seconds, take a few deep breaths, come right back around, right? Those little moments really do start to add up. And again, it's not typical, right? Many traders don't do this regularly because it's your job to trade. You're not sitting in front of the charts. You're not doing your job. All right. And I would argue that's not your job. Your job is to be trading from a position of strength, right? Your job is to treat yourself as a weapon, right? Let's think about like a sword, right? You got to be sharp. Your sword is blunt. Like what is it? It can still work to a degree, but like, this is not a game that you're trying to win by it working to a degree. Like, you need great precision, sharp mind. So it's not your job to just trade. It's your job to trade from the right perspective, with the right mentality, with the right emotional state, with the right stability, with the right amount of energy. And those regular breaks throughout the day help to keep you sharp. Right? Not a complicated idea, but one that honestly many, many, many traders have difficulty doing until they develop the conviction and the discipline to understand what their job really is. And then it becomes quite easy. Right? Whatever it takes for me to be at my best, that's what I'll do. Right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, all right, rant's over. Let's get to some questions. Again, we'll start with the ones that are connected to burnout, and then we'll go to any other questions that you all have, and we'll get after it. All right, congrats. Love to hear that. Now make sure that you don't get overconfident here and continue to trade in the same way that got you there. So good work. This might be a stupid question, but do you think playing video games can help you to discharge, or would you recommend doing something else? It's not a stupid question. There's a lot of ways to kind of decompress and wind down from the day. I would say, generally speaking, video games could be part of your wind down if it's something that you are relaxed about. A lot of people are very competitive when it comes to video games, and that competitiveness just burns too much energy. I want you to do something that is kind of truly more in the hobby category, where you win, you lose, you don't care. You're not really trying to improve. You might improve naturally, right, over time, but it really is more about the fun and the enjoyment. Sure. I prefer that you're away from screens, getting a break from just kind of the constant, kind of technology surrounding you. But, I'm not, convinced that it has to be that way. I'll be convinced of what has to be there based on what you find to be optimal. So try it out, see what happens. You might find that it works on days where you actually feel pretty good, at the end of the day, right? It truly is like kind of a break. But on days where you're like really exhausted, it's like a Thursday, Friday, it's been a slog, you're in a little bit of a drawdown, you're struggling. On those days, maybe video games is just too much and you need to go for a walk, or watch a movie, or read a book, or like something that is offline and a bit more relaxing. If I skip a low quality trade and it wins, I feel guilty. If I take it and it loses, I regret it. Either way, I'm frustrated. I don't know how to break the cycle in my trading. But you're looking for control in ways that you don't have it, right? First off, if you skip a low quality trade, are you skipping it because it's actually a low quality trade and it's outside your system? Or is there room in your system for taking low quality trades on a regular basis and scaling them appropriately, sizing them appropriately? That's your determination. All right. But if it wins, that's an irrelevant point, right? A monkey can throw a dart at a dartboard, have it hit a stock, and that stock can go up and make money today. I mean, there's no skill in that. If you take it and it loses, how is that your fault? Why do you regret it, right? You regret it because there's a part of your mind that believes that you have control over the results. There's a part of your mind that expects every trade that you take to win. There's a part of your mind that is looking to win no matter what, which is why you feel guilty after a low quality trade wins, or you're wishing for that kind of control. Either way, one of those flaws is manipulating your mind into creating a false sense of control here, right? And that is dangerous. So being able to kind of break apart your control from the results in the short term is essential, right? Your control comes from your execution. And yeah, you might continue to have the reflex and the impulse to feel guilty or to have regret based on the scenarios you mentioned, but you got to fight against those. You cannot allow yourself for that guilt to stick around or the regret to stick around. If you take it and it loses, all right, you feel some regret, but then no. These trades are correct. They're in my system. They're probabilistically, have EV, have positive expectation in the long run. This is where my edge lives. If I take it and it loses, that's part of trading. There's no system that can win every single trade, right? This is what you're saying to yourself and retraining your mind to think about. And if you skip a low quality trade and it wins, you're saying the exact same thing. I skipped this trade for X, Y, and Z reason. It's outside of my system. If I were to take this trade, whether it wins or loses, it is wrong. Right? Again, talking your way through it. You cannot allow yourself to be manipulated in the way that you're describing. Thank you. Appreciate that. What's the biggest mindset shift traders need to become consistently profitable? It's that the mindset is not as important as your strategy, right? Trading psychology is not the whole thing. There's not a mindset shift that is going to make you consistently profitable if you don't have a strategy that is proven to be profitable long term. And I understand the complexities in that. I understand that you can think that you have one based on backtesting. You can think you have one for a variety of reasons, and the market changes, and now it's no longer profitable, or there's adjustments that have to be made. But the point is that many people think that there is some mindset shift you can make, and then that's going to make you profitable, right? And so you really have to be leading with your tactics, your strategy, your system. And there's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of people who are out there selling and promoting various ways to be profitable and to make money in trading. At the end of the day, you have to create your own strategy and your own system based on your own personal psychology, based on your own personal interests, based on your own abilities to kind of read and interpret the indicators and signals that can allow that, right? Create your own fingerprint. That's what you have to lead with. And yes, right, there's a point where you have a strategy and it's your psychology that's really impairing your ability to execute on it, your ability to adapt and add in enough accurate discretion to be able to make that system profitable. And that's where the psychology, the mindset, mental game comes in. But there's not like a singular thing that's going to do that. It's much more of a a personal one, right? It could be related to overconfidence or greed or FOMO or burnout, right? So there's not like one thing, but I would say if there was one thing that's the biggest, it would be, probably would be fear. I think it's probably the biggest one that affects most traders. Right? And it's not just about the fear of FOMO. It's the interpretation of pressure. Trading is an intense endeavor, right? Reasons I already mentioned as to why it can lead to a lot of burnout. That intense endeavor sometimes gets treated as fear, and the feelings of intensity and nervousness become interpreted as something that's bad. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. I should feel more comfortable and relaxed. Like, actually, you shouldn't. Your goals and your dreams are on the line here. This matters. It's okay for it to be uncomfortable. Just don't let that discomfort deter you. That's by far one of the biggest problems that traders face here. It's like the inability to handle the discomfort from that fear, right? From that nervousness, from that doubt, from that uncertainty, and have all that. And in the face of it, you still take the trades that you know you're supposed to. You still hold that trade until its target, until your target, right? Even as it dances around, and even after sometimes those trades reverse and fail and stop you out. And as much pain as that as it produces, you don't allow the discomfort of that loss to then drive you to take another one. Right? The ability to handle that discomfort, work through it, drive through it is essential. So yeah, maybe I've changed my opinion here as I've talked through this. Maybe it's not just fear. Maybe it is that ability to handle discomfort. How can I train myself to stick to my risk management rules under pressure? How would you train yourself to build bigger muscles? How would you train yourself to become faster or to be able to have more endurance running? Right? How would you train yourself to learn how to code? Let's say not using AI. How would you train yourself to learn any skill? Right? Repetition, repetition, repetition. So, you're asking how to do it under pressure means that there's a lot of preparation that goes in where you're really deeply internalizing those risk management rules. And it's not just kind of the top line rules. It's the logic behind those rules. It's the why. It's the what supports the framework that you've created here. Maybe it's learning more about probabilities to help support that, right? And so all that work flows into your ability to then apply it under pressure. Because when you're trying to apply a strategy or trying to apply learnings and lessons under pressure, the degree of training has to be higher, right? So my guess is that you are knowledgeable, obviously, about your risk management rules, but you're not really deeply knowledgeable, right? If I wake you up at 3 a.m. and I say, what are your risk management rules and why do they matter? Like, why are they constructed this way? Could you answer me within 30 seconds? If the answer is no, then you are not ready to be able to thrive under pressure. It's as simple as that. And so, yeah, a lot of repetition, a lot of deep internalization is necessary in order for you to be able to consistently apply those risk management rules under pressure and to train to do that. However, we do know that sometimes there are flaws, right, that influence your ability to apply those risk management rules, which could come from any of the mental game issues that are out there, right? Whether it's greed or FOMO or overconfidence or a lack of confidence or, burnout, right? Any of those issues can impair your ability to translate that training into action in real time. So on the one hand, you've got the training element. On the other hand, you've got the corrections necessary to avoid problems that impair your ability to apply that risk management. How do you clear your mind when you're burdened with so much emotional stress and expectations? Simple answer is writing or taking, a audio recording, maybe even audio recording and turning it into a transcription. You just get stuff out, right? You're going to clear your mind out. Get it out. blank sheet of paper, just start writing. It might seem random and disjointed and fractured, nonsensical. Who cares? Right? Your job is not to understand it in the moment. Your job is to get it out and talk about what the emotional stress is, talk about what those expectations are, talk about the damage and the difficulty and the turmoil that's, kind of all affecting you there, and see how you feel afterwards. Okay. Just kind of give a big old brain dump. How do you feel afterwards? Kind of cleaned out? Maybe not immediately, but soon thereafter, right? You're going to kind of feel that levity, feel that lightness, feel that clarity that's going to come back. Maybe after a break, after a rest, after a nap, after going to sleep. Right? But the bottom line is like, this is a great tactic to use at the end of a trading day to do exactly that, to make sense of what happened. It's a simple tactic, simple strategy, but one that, again, traders are hesitant to do. Kevin, how are you? I've identified FOMO on high quality scenarios since I don't trade every day. Measuring my success on the result and development of individual trades has been identified also. Okay. Was there a question there? Listen, I'm happy that you've identified it. A lot of times, many of you are stuck, unknowing the things that are affecting you. So I'm assuming you want some help in correcting it. And success on the result and development of individual trades has been identified also. So are you basically saying that your FOMO is a result of not wanting to miss out on individual trades that could give you a feeling of success? So it's like the fear of missing out on potential success, the fear of missing out on actual success. That's going to give me that feeling. But what's the reality? You've constructed your trading in such a way that success has to be measured within that construct. And so success is measured within that lens, within those rules. It's not just measured based on, the hypothetical results that could have come, right? I mean, you're a retail business selling t-shirts, and you recognize that on one particular day, there was a line of people outside your door after hours. You could have sold a bunch of t-shirts, so you missed out on that opportunity. But when you do the math, you've had your business open for those extra 2 hours an evening that would have theoretically allowed you to capitalize on that one day. Yet, if you actually had kept your business open every day for an extra 2 hours, it would have cost you money for actually, payroll and whatever else, electricity, right? You do the math. It doesn't actually pay. So yes, there are going to be opportunities that you will miss. Yes, you cannot capture all of them. Yes, you have to construct your business and operate your measure and use that as your measurement of success. And over time, if you find that there are legitimate opportunities that are consistently occurring outside those business hours that are, not that more complicated to adapt, right? Okay, well, turns out Thursdays are the day where people want to buy t-shirts after 6 p.m. And so Thursdays, we're going to stay open later. And so now you're able to capitalize it effectively for free. You got to be practical in how you're defining your version of success, because otherwise it's just too broad. All right. You got to define what your own game is, right? Trading is not going to do it for you. And if you default to just, profit and potential profit, you're going to drive yourself crazy. The game's too broad, right? It's almost like you're trying to play chess, but there's no chessboard. You have to define the game, so to speak. So yeah, that again, another thing that makes trading difficult. You have to define the game for yourself and measure your success accordingly. How to deal with comparing results. Look, anytime that you're jealous of somebody else's results, that's an indication of a weakness in confidence on your own. So the success of others makes you feel bad. Why though? Right? You're not happy with where you are. You're not happy that you're not as successful as you want to be. You're not happy with your strategy. You're confused or unsure as to why they're making money and you're not. Right? There's some things for you to work out. So comparisons have to be helpful. Right? If they're not helpful, right, the leading to jealousy and the distraction and extra emotion, well, then what are you really learning? What are you really gaining from that comparison? If it's helping you to recognize, like, oh, damn, like, all right, a range of people are able to make money that have a similar strategy than me, and I'm not. Well, then clearly there might be something off here that I've got to work through. It's got to be helpful. It's got to be productive. Otherwise, if it's just this sort of blind expectation that you have for yourself to be living up to the results of others, I mean, you're not really going to learn a whole lot from that. How do I know if what I'm feeling is rational market intuition or just emotional bias? Rational market intuition. That's an interesting phrase. Let's try to clear this up a little bit. And I do have a free ebook on intuition on my website, jaredtendler.com. You'll see under the resources tab this free ebook. But I'm going to give you kind of the highlights here of that. Okay. So intuition is not something that comes from the market. Intuition is something that comes from your interpretation of market-based information. And you're right. It is hard to distinguish between your own internal sense or feel of what is correct versus emotions that can manipulate you into thinking that, what you're sensing is correct. So FOMO, fear, overconfidence, right? A lack of confidence. Oh, this position is, it's going to reverse and stop me out. Like, I have to get out. Right? I just feel that it's right, that's what's going to happen. Seems like intuition, but it really is your own lack of confidence or your own fear, right, that is creating that bias and causing that drop. So you're right in making that distinction. Okay. But the intuition piece, I want to really kind of clean up. Okay. Intuition is your unconscious sense of what's right. We are constantly gathering up data at a level that we don't perceive. And so when you're in the zone, when you're in a high level mental and emotional state, you're able to begin kind of utilizing that unconscious data to allow discretionary adaptations, to take trades, to size trades in ways that you aren't able to normally. But what produces that is really key. Number one, experience. You as a new trader, you got less than, like 9 to 15 months of experience. You have to be really, really careful about using intuition. You just don't have enough experience to kind of cultivate and turn that sense into something that has any chance of being accurate. Right? You can very easily be manipulated into thinking, not from an emotional sense, but from an intuition sense. Like, oh yeah, I just feel like today is going to sell off. Where's that coming from? Right? You talk to newer trader, talk to, a trader that's got 15, 30 years of experience. Doesn't mean that they're going to be right. Right? Does not mean that they're going to be right. It's not the point. But are they probabilistically going to be more right from that standpoint than they are normally? Probably. Right? So, right, their directional predictions maybe become 2 to 5% more likely, maybe even more than that. But it's not like they are like 100% going to be right. Yeah. So if you have more experience, and I see, right, you are a full-time trader here. If you have a full-time trader with like 3 to 5 years of experience, then your intuition is going to start to become more reliable, provided that you can distinguish it from emotion. So I would very simply take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and say, emotion masquerading as intuition, real, genuine intuition. What are the qualitative differences that you can recognize between those two? Here's what I mean. In your focus, in your thinking, in your emotional state, in your physical state, what are the differences? Right? Emotion, thoughts are more rapid, tension in my head, heat in my chest, constricted breathing, worry about X, Y, and Z. Decision making becomes more of a default kind of basic protection. Real intuition, clear focus. Thinking is, kind of fast but orderly. There's a sense of something new here that's interesting. You're not like kind of pressing or looking. It's more of just a kind of a simple like, huh, or an aha, right? There are very distinct qualitative differences between those 2 points. Make the distinction, right? And again, it does not mean that your intuition is going to be right. It does not mean that you are going to make money from it, but it does mean that there's probably some higher probabilistic probabilities behind you, and cool, take advantage of that. Heck yeah, take advantage of that. Okay. So as I said, I see the link's been posted for the ebook. Yeah, I do suggest all traders check it out. Even if you're new, just to kind of understand like what you're eventually going to look out for. But again, I make a very strong caution early on: do not use it, right? If you're too new, because you need to have experience, right? Intuition is just you relying on that bedrock of knowledge to then interpret kind of what's kind of coming from the market today and making sense of it. You don't have that. You're just lost, but believing that you have something that's real. That's not the case there. So, good question. All right, I was do you think when it comes to risk and reward ratio, it also comes down to psychology to be able to hold to a certain risk reward? I mean, it's not just risk reward, it's just the construction of your strategy. I mean, like if you have a strategy that you're looking for like a 1 to 3 return with a 40% win rate, and you now are chopping that down to a 1.5 to 1, or 1 to 1.5, and sticking with that 40% win rate, like, I mean, you're not really going to make this thing worthwhile. So it's not just about the risk reward ratio. It's about your ability to have your psychology allow you to trade your system and the way that it's constructed, trade your strategy the way it's constructed. Otherwise, you can't be successful long term, or can't be as successful as possible. So again, that's where psychology comes in. It's helping you to unlock your potential. Right? It cannot create the strategy, cannot create whatever the way in which your strategy is constructed. It can help you to utilize and access and apply that strategy more often. Yes, more questions in the chat. And accidental, I see. Thank you for the perfectionism sheet. Really improved my trading discipline and helped me to build a positive mindset. And that's probably the thing that has impacted me the most. So appreciate you sharing the feedback there. That's awesome. Like perfectionism worksheet, for those that are not aware, is a tool to help you to correct your perfectionism. No shocker there. Perfectionism is a problem that you can't just kind of like rationalize, because the damage that it inflicts creates like kind of an internal injury to your confidence. And to change your perspective is not going to necessarily correct the damage. So the perfectionism worksheet is designed to help correct that, heal that injury to your confidence, and thus allowing you to become, a bit more stable and solid going forward. So I'm glad to hear that that's worked and is helping. Just keep in mind that, like a lot of things, it's the repetition. So even if you're not necessarily creating new sheets, not kind of adding to what you've already written, reread it, right? Again, work towards that internalization. In that internalization, think about intent. Think about some of the things that are deeper and support that, right? That there's often kind of a lot behind what you've written. And so in the internalization, right, that's what creates the real strength, long term. So, just keep up with the reshaping, the building, the strengthening, and that'll help you to continue to move forward. So, what else, everybody? I'm sure there are more questions, more problems, more updates. I'd love to hear more updates. Many of you have come back from previous sessions. So again, if you try to apply some things and they're not working, like, that's relevant. You can say, hey, try this, and it's not working to the degree that I wanted to. What else? Like, what other options do we have here? You're not stuck. All right. And just keep in mind too, look, we've got the rest of this session and we've got next week. So you want access to me, right? You want access to, some things that can really make a difference in your trading. Have at it. Bring it on. If you had to give one mental exercise to improve trading discipline, what would it be? That's a good question. One mental exercise. So I think, like, when we think about discipline, you got to think about it from the standpoint that you're trying to train your mind to have better focus, to have more patience, to avoid procrastination, thus by kind of acting and taking on, kind of what you need to be doing. And so, like, what's going to create the energy, right, to get you to do that, right? So the exercise might first be to define exactly what needs to improve within your trading discipline. I don't want to take that for granted. Many of you just kind of assume that you know what you need to be doing from a discipline standpoint. But do you have the precision to know in the moment, this is what I need to be improving on? So we'll start there. Second to that, though, discipline is measured up against your goals. And it's our goals that can help to create the energy in those key moments. So the one mental exercise I would strongly suggest here is creating a deeper connection to the whys behind your goals. Okay. You want to become a successful trader. Why? Why does it matter so much to you? All right. And I don't want just some factual kind of like, newspaper kind of answer, meaning like, if you were hypothetically being interviewed, right, you're not going to give the full answer. You're just going to give something that, appeases the reporter and, makes them go away. I want the depth here. I want something that's going to generate some real emotion, some real passion, some real energy. Right? Why do you become a successful trader? Because people have doubted me throughout my life, and it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving to myself that I can be capable of doing something that's really hard. Right? Now we got some power. Right? Now we got something that's going to create some heat. And so if that's what you're bringing, into those moments where your discipline's lacking, well, that's now what's on the line here. Now you know what you're trying to prove. Right? You want to be successful. You want to make X amount of money because it's not about just providing for your family. It's about showing your kids what can come from hard work, about living your ideals, about being a role model that doesn't just say hard work and discipline matters. It's about showing up and proving it and showing what that can do. being a true role model, right? Again, those are the things we're looking for in the connection to your why, right? Really capturing the essence of what is driving you. That connection has to get strong, right? We're just going to kind of call it the 3 a.m. test, right? Do I wake you up in the morning at 3 a.m.? Can you immediately tell me, what your why is, right? And if you can't, then you're not ready for those moments where your discipline's on the line and you need to make improvements. Good question. What are the early signs of burnout? They're personal. There's a wide variety of things you might see, but generally speaking, the drive and desire to do something is going to drop off, right? Whether it's the drive or desire to actually trade, to do your pre-market prep, to actually kind of like set certain levels and get yourself ready to trade. I mean, there's, kind of tactically less interest in doing that. There's a greater amount of like kind of frazzledness. Your thinking doesn't flow quite as clearly. It's, kind of easier for you to get distracted, to lose a sense of what you're doing in the moment. There's a greater tendency towards laziness. There's more of a desire to kind of want to skip your cool down and kind of go on with the day. Like basically anything that's, a normal part of your process and routine, if it's becoming a bit hazy, foggy, and less interesting, those are generally big early signs to look out for. How to get self-control when I place a trade, because sometimes I get out of my trade before hitting the profit target. Is it simply about developing self-control, or is there some emotion that is compelling you to bail prematurely? I would argue that it's probably more emotion, right? You're fearful of having that trade fail, right? So you're going to get out with something, right? You're overly attached to that unrealized P&L, and it just forces you to want to make sure that you're not going to lose all of it, right? How can you walk away from somebody trying to hand you $20, hoping that in this particular trade it's going to reach 60? All right. How do you walk away from money that's in your hand? It's hard. But again, you're doing so because the way that your trading business is constructed is you have to get the $60. Otherwise, it's just not worth your time. And there will be times where you could have had 20, you end up losing 20. Okay? And that is part of the game. Okay? So the fear is really the bigger issue. Maybe it's the self-criticism, right? You beat yourself up because, you thought it was intuition, right? Just as I was just saying earlier, right? You thought it was intuitive that you had this idea that you should close prematurely. Oh, like it's going to reverse. I should get out now with something, right? But then if you don't, and then you're really pissed off that you should have because you knew better, you had the thought, but the self-criticism is really misguided, right? That's not intuition. That is fear manipulating you and convincing you that you know something that you can't. You don't know which way this market's going to go. You made a bet, probabilistic one that had edge, and that's all you can be sure of. Okay, trying to ensure that every trade hits its profit target is not something that you have control of, which means you have to firmly accept the probability that there are times where trades are going to fail. All right, you're accepting both sides of it at the moment that you enter. You're accepting the possibility that it could go 90% to your target and then reverse, wiki out, and then go right to your actual target. Market can be brutal, incredibly painful to deal with that. Okay. But again, I think it's less about the self-control and more about whatever emotion is that's compelling you to close, right? And ultimately forcing you into a style and a strategy that's going to cause you to fail long-term. So, okay, you might be able to get out with some profit today, but you're running your business antithetical to what's going to be profitable long term, right? You're selling your t-shirts at too big of a discount. Profit margin can't handle it, right? And you're going to make your business so mediocrely successful at best that it's still probably not worth your time, right? It's got to be worth your time, right? You're putting all this time and energy into it, right? Get paid for it. Don't settle for less. What's the sign you might be going in the wrong path in trading? You have very little desire to like really figure out how to become a successful trader. You're just looking for easy money. You're throwing a lot of money at trading to try to make easy money. Right? You don't really want to become a trader. You want to just make a lot of money. And effectively, you're kind of gambling to be able to do that. I mean, that would be the quick and easy ones. Going down the wrong path in trading, that's a different question. But like knowing that trading is not right for you, they're two very, very different questions. So if I'm kind of misinterpreting what you're asking, let me know. If it's, how do you know that you're going down the wrong path in trading, right? And in the ways that you're approaching it, like anytime that you're allowing emotion to significantly impair your decision-making, your judgment, your execution, and not really doing a whole lot about it, right? Kind of hoping and wishing that, you're just going to like learn enough and all that stuff's going to be gone and no longer an issue. Well, to me, that would be going down the wrong path because you're effectively gambling with your mentality, hoping that you're going to somehow kind of wake up one day and figure it all out. And it might happen. Probably won't. Again, it's the gamble. You have a 50% chance that that's going to happen. No effing way. Right? That stuff rarely happens. Right? It's hard enough to become a successful trader. It's hard enough to become successful just hoping that one day things are going to magically click in place. So no, you got to do the work on this side of the coin for sure. Going down the wrong path in trading by system hopping, just as soon as a system fails and you're not being successful with it, like gone, go try something else. Again, with the idea that you're looking for something to immediately work, you're not really trying to become successful as a trader. You're trying to make money quickly and easily. So that can become evident in both sides of the coin here. Can FOMO be mastered? And if yes, how? Will probability thinking eliminate all kinds of psychological problems? It's a question that has been asked for years, not just in trading, but, I started in poker. Well, I started in golf, but then went to poker pretty quickly. So started working with poker players in 2007. 2017. Sorry, 17 years since 2007. 18 years. I got 18 years now. Holy cow. And back then I was getting the exact same question. Can you eliminate all mental and emotional issues within poker by having a perfect understanding of probability? Possibly. If that doesn't work, then what that means is that you are bringing faulty perspectives, these biases, these flaws, these illusions, these wishes and hopes, right, in the back of your mind are getting imprinted into the market, getting imprinted into poker, getting imprinted into your interpretation of probabilistic thinking. Right? You cannot always train those problems out just with probabilistic thinking. Right? You also need to deal directly with the various ways in which your mind can malfunction and the difficulty that you can encounter there. So that's the second question. First question, can FOMO be mastered? Yes. The mastery is a byproduct of correcting the underlying flaws, biases, wishes, illusions that compel you to violate your strategy. Right? So you absolutely can correct it, but you can't correct it through suppression, through control alone. You can only master it by correcting the impulses that compel you to get seduced by it in the first place. If I'm an intraday trader following 5 markets and there are 50 trades per week, can I choose to execute only 2 per day, making it 10 in total? Look, I'm not a trader, right? So I'm not the right person to answer this question. You got to decide for yourself, and if you need some advice, then find it elsewhere. I've been hearing, okay, so there's a follow-up from that, are you on the right path question. I've been hearing about the success story on how it just clicks and boom, they become profitable, and it sounds unrealistic. That can happen. But I would argue that it happens to far less than 1% of traders. It suddenly kind of clicks and then that's it. They're off and running. Generally speaking, it's more like it takes many, many months and then it can click, sure. But the click didn't come out of nowhere. It's kind of like the 16-year overnight success, right? All of a sudden things just sort of magically kind of align. Well, that didn't happen because they just kind of came out of nowhere, right? I mean, I don't know exactly how many years the Beatles were playing in like underground clubs, but it was a long freaking time. Like 3-5 years, just like gig after gig after gig, unnoticed. Nobody knew who they were. Nothing, right? And then overnight sensation didn't happen overnight though. Like to them, it happened overnight to all those who are witnessing it. Like, oh, well, where do they come from? Kind of just doesn't happen out of nothing. Recently just watched the Led Zeppelin documentary. Super cool for those Led Zeppelin fans out there. And same deal, right? Now, they were all young. So it is remarkable what they were able to accomplish at a very, very young age. But again, like, it's not like they just formed this band and then they were, international superstars. I mean, they were grinding, day after day, hour after hour, for years prior to that. So yeah, it's easy to kind of see the boom part, and even the ones that do boom, they don't necessarily know what made it click. They might have gotten lucky with the market just kind of lining up with their strategy, and off it goes. It's nothing to do with their ability to make things click. It had to do with them being at the right time and right place for it to happen. But many traders, right, don't kind of go through that. Like I said, it's less than 1% for sure of successful traders that's how it happens. Most of the time, it's these progressions and steps back and periods of progress followed by periods of consolidation, followed by a big leg up. Become now profitable, but then still struggling to like really make it worthwhile. And then, maybe a couple years later or 6 months later, or whatever, right now things start to click and things are off to the races. But again, it's not like one singular moment took them from, maybe where you are right now to suddenly becoming wildly profitable like that. That's just doesn't happen. And if it does happen, are you going to be able to continue to sustain that degree of profitability long term? Many times there's periods of regression afterwards because you don't firmly have enough command of your strategy or system yet, and struggle when market conditions aren't quite lined up, and maybe struggle with some emotional and mental control that you didn't have to learn earlier. You seemingly got lucky and kind of having to avoid all those issues, but the trial by fire didn't force you to train it. I have a golf client who, on the PGA Tour, a very, very successful player, but really hadn't been tested, much, and has recently really struggled. And it was like, a very difficult season, but as like kind of coming out the other side. And so in other words, like he was forced to learn things this year that he just never had to learn early in his career. Had he struggled early in his career, we would have learned it. So again, you kind of find different points in time where you're forced to learn those things. And sometimes it comes after that boom. So hope that answers your question. Why is psychology very important to trading? And how can a growing trader get along with that? Psychology is important because it's kind of like the oil to an engine, right? You've got this system, right? The engine to your profitability. but if you don't have enough oil in it, right, things not going to work properly. So, I often relate my job as kind of being the mechanic, right? Trying to figure out, kind of what in the machinery that is your mind, again, not just the oil example here, but when the machinery of your mind is off, that's not allowing, it to kind of flow naturally. So strategy, system is more important than psychology, but psychology becomes the tool with which you're able to apply that strategy on a regular basis and continue to grow it over time. Second to that is having a strategy that aligns with your personality. I think if you're going to become the best trader possible, it's got to really be kind of in line with who you are and what you value and what you want and where you're curious and what you're interested in, where your intelligence lies, and yada yada yada. There's alignment there that is important. So better understanding yourself means your strategy and system is going to be better lined up, and you'll be more successful that way. Psychology matters for persevering through tougher times, for maintaining, being grounded during those great times, in that consistent execution. Right? It's very easy to be swayed in many different directions, and a lot of that has to do with your psychology. How can a growing trader get along with that? Start being as inquisitive about patterns that exist in the market. Patterns that exist within yourself as you are with patterns within the market, right? Study yourself similarly as you study the markets. You're not random. You're a series of well-established patterns. Better you can understand what those patterns are, the more command and control you can have over your own psychology and ultimately over your own execution. How to turn uncertainty into a motivating force instead of a stress trigger. Well, uncertainty is an inherent part of trading. Uncertainty is a fundamental reality. You cannot know. Now, I think the key is less about turning it into a motivating force and more about removing the stress, and then that can allow the motivation to flow. Uncertainty becomes stressful and anxiety producing when you're hoping, wishing that it wasn't there. You're creating false expectations, false certainties about the future, or about particular trades, about strategies, about your own success that you can't know, isn't real, right? You're not psychic. So the less that you embrace the fundamental reality that uncertainty is part of this, right? Your job is not to know what's going to happen in the future. Your job is to create probabilistic strategies that have edge in the long term. And that kind of cuts through the uncertainty long term, not in individual moments. So remove some of the manipulation that's created in your mind to produce fake or false certainty where you cannot have it. Right? That's how you remove some of the stress. But it actually can increase more stress coming from that perspective, because when you embrace the realities of uncertainty, right, it is stressful. So sometimes people naturally create this false certainty as a way of reducing stress, but it obviously creates it in a different form. So embracing the stress, embracing the uncertainty, it goes right back to what I was talking earlier about being able to become more comfortable with discomfort. It's not causal in terms of problems, right? You feel stress. It could actually be a measure that you're doing things right, not a measure that you're doing things wrong. They say waiting is part of work and trading, but why is it so difficult? Because you want things immediately. You live in a society where you can watch almost any content you want instantaneously. You can be transported to a different world almost instantaneously. Food on demand. There is so much right now that exists in the world that runs against what's essential in trading. So training yourself to be less demanding, and to be more patient with situations, right? I mean, you're standing in line at the grocery store, you're bored, immediately pull out your phone, boredom gone, right? Can you stand in that line and be bored? Can you sit in traffic in a car and not look at your effing phone? I say effing because that is one of the big things that tilts me, is just how selfish people are in using their phone while they're driving. So you want to get better at trading, right? Put your phone away while you're driving. Put your phone away in many situations, right? You will train yourself to be bored. You'll train yourself to just be, rather than be distracted, be consumed. Right? And I'm really frustrated about it from a driving standpoint because it's a safety problem. So right, you're putting my life at risk because you can't have some entertainment. F you. That's what I say to that. So anyway, there's my tilt. How do you regain the confidence you gain from an accomplishment? If recent performances have been inconsistent, where do you know what to do, but you just go blank in real time? Yeah, so the pattern you're describing is very typical with perfectionism and high expectations. So that standard really damages confidence, right? Damages the connection you have to past accomplishments and skills and knowledge, because they're being measured up against a standard that's really unrealistic. And so it's not about like decreasing or lowering that standard. It's about understanding the nature with which you're going to realize that standard, which is going to include a lot of ups and downs and a lot of learning and a lot of growth and a lot of chaos and a lot of failures and successes and ups and downs. It's not a straight line right to it. So I mentioned earlier the perfectionism worksheet, right? jaredtendler.com/worksheets, right? You also go to jaredtendler.com/perfectionism. I talk about this exact topic a lot. It's how you can kind of rebuild the connection to those accomplishments. And when they are stronger, they kind of provide that support for your mentality. So, you go blank in real time because it's like you feel like you've lost connection, but it's not like you've lost connection. It's just like your mind's in a fog. And in that fog, you kind of can't reach out and grab, kind of what to be true. But you spend some time before connecting with those parts of yourself, connecting with those accomplishments, making them more alive in your mind. Well, then they will cut through the fog. And so then you're able to have that stability and that clarity in those moments where you might typically, kind of blank out. But it's going to take some work, right? This is not like an overnight fix, right? Give yourself, 4 to 12 weeks here to see some continual progress. You might have some days where it's easier than others, but it's the continual repetition that is really, really key. My logical mind will have no or zero control in trading. I know my trading system well, but when emotion comes in, I forget everything and de-align from the original plan. How can we cope with it? It's the wrong question to be asking. I don't want you to cope with that reality. Right? I want you to actually correct the cause of the emotion, because what you're describing is a fundamental law of human nature. Okay. When emotions rise too high, they actually shut down the part of the brain that is responsible for doing all the things you just mentioned, right? Having control, planning, making decisions, accessing recent knowledge, having emotional control. All those things are reduced when your emotions are too high, right? So it's not about coping with it. It's about understanding what is causing your emotions to become too excessive, correcting those errors, flaws, biases, wishes, etc. Right, and then applying a correction early and aggressively, consistently. Like, it's not about coping. You've got to create a mental game strategy, right, for those situations, because what you're describing is the law of human nature, and we are trying to strategize around it. It's like, how do I fly given the fact that there is gravity? How do I cope with that reality that I fall off a cliff whenever I try to jump. I can't fly. That's basically what you're saying. I'm not asking you to cope with it. I'm asking you to construct an airplane. I'm asking you to construct a strategy that accounts for that fundamental law in human nature and counters it, works against it, and allows you to correct those underlying causes of your emotions, and allows you to have more command at times when gravity would take you down into this place where you lose control. Right? And that's what my work is all about, right? So this is not an easy thing to construct, but the mental game of trading goes into an incredible detailed way. And as I said, I've got tons of free resources on my website to help you to follow up on that. But you're not going to create what you're asking for like that. Certainly not in a session like this. You can begin working on it. Absolutely. Right. Having the right perspective on what you're trying to do here is the beginning of it. So consider this to be the first of many, many steps. What are some effective ways to recover mid-session if I've already broken a rule? First off, why did you break the rule? Right? Tired, bored, distracted, burned out? Well, that's going to require a different strategy than if you're emotional. So first thing you got to figure out is, why did I break the rule? FOMO, greed, revenge, overconfidence, emotions, or burnout, fatigue, boredom, distraction, lack of discipline, right? Pick a side of the coin. Right? If you're emotional, write about the emotion, right? Get it out. Gives you a chance to kind of decompress a little bit, see what's going on, have a chance to be able to correct that problem. You know, unmotivated, distracted, take a break and go think about your goals. Think about the whys behind your goals. You got to generate more energy, right? On the one hand, we got to reduce that emotion. On the other hand, we got to generate more energy or emotion. So yeah, that's how you problem solve the situation there. All right, we're getting a little shy on time here, so get your questions in, and let's kind of get it done while we still got some daylight ahead of us. All right, how do you handle excitement? Because when I'm in winning streak, things turn very ugly quickly. Talked a lot about overconfidence last session, so I'd strongly recommend you going back and watching that video if you haven't already seen it. Give you a couple ideas now here. Okay. Number one is, part of that excitement is because you are now believing something about the future that you can't know. You're expecting to continue to win. You're expecting this trade to play out. You're expecting that there's no, like, you kind of have some house money here to play with, and you know you're expecting that it's not going to bother you if you lose it. None of which are true. So the excitement is based off of a lie. And that's the basis of overconfidence. So you got to figure out what you're believing that's not true. What's the lie that you're getting seduced into thinking, into believing? And by correcting that, you automatically get yourself on more solid ground, right? You want to stay grounded on during a winning streak. Adhere to what you know is true. Okay. When you're in a winning streak, it doesn't change the probabilistic nature of this game. When you're in a winning streak, doesn't mean that the next trade is going to win. Doesn't mean that your future is assured. Your goals are guaranteed. Right. So that's how you stay more grounded. But as I said, go back to the previous session. There's a lot of good content there. I hope this isn't an irrelevant question. How do you think Alex Harnold managed to free solo climb? What's the difference between his brain and ours? They actually did some brain scans. He has a significantly smaller, what's the word? There's a part of the brain that's associated with fear. Is it the amygdala? Yeah, it might be the amygdala. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's a part of the brain that's like really kind of associated with the fear center. His is smaller than most people's. So his experience of fear is at a baseline far less than, most people. I don't know where he would kind of land on the bell curve. but it's significantly less than most people. So, yeah, look, genetics matter. I mean, but just because you might have a larger amygdala and maybe are more susceptible to fear than Alex is, doesn't mean that you can't free solo. Doesn't mean that you can't be successful in trading. It just means that it will be harder for you than it is for him. You want to do it, you'll find a way. How do I become content with letting go of a passion? Is it possible? I suppose you'd have to have some pretty good reasons why you're letting go of it. Now, if you're letting go with trading's a passion because you're losing money from it and are unable to be successful, then the letting go is perhaps a little bit easier if you feel like you've done everything you could to make it successful. If you've agreed that it's not your time and that you're going to come back to it at some point in the future when, situation is, more stable, you've got the capital to be able to support your growth. You have the time and energy to be able to explore and understand, kind of where you fell short. Listen, I mean, anything is possible. Maybe not anything, but most things are possible. I think it's like, in some ways, kind of like grieving the loss of a loved one. In the short term, there's often the denial, the rationalization, the bargaining, until you come to terms with the fact that this person is dead. They're not coming back. And what I'm left with is the memories, the impact that they had on my life. Right. And for better or worse, that's where you can kind of get to with trading or with whatever passion is that you're trying to have to move on from. But again, sometimes there is a resurrection that occurs. And these passions can kind of come back and be dusted off and reconnected with maybe later in your life because you're in a different place and maybe you're more evolved and healthier, stronger, more capable, and able to handle the volatility that may come with this passion. How can I maintain focus for hours without burning mental energy? You can't. Wow, I don't know what without burning mental, you're burning mental energy right now just paying attention to me. I mean, mental energy is like physical energy. You are burning it. I mean, your brain is a massive glucose hog. It consumes a lot of it, right? I don't recall the exact research on it, but you think about like chess players just sitting in place for hours. They're burning a lot of calories. They're not moving physically very much. Certainly not like playing a sport, and yet the caloric intake that's necessary is really large. So how can you maintain focus for hours? It's by burning mental energy. What I've taken from this session is that a lot of us struggle with overconfidence, attached to outcome of each trade while ignoring the truth that is constant about the market and ourselves. It's a good summary. They're curious. That is true. Look, you all are not that much different, right? I mean, the specifics and the ways that you deal with different issues are unique, but the themes are really, really, really kind of consistent. Right, questions here. All right. What else you got? Got a few more minutes here. Questions are not going to ask themselves. Ask yourself. Actually, that's a good point. I hope so. What have you learned from today's session? Let's see if we get some chance to kind of reinforce some key points. So that'll be an interesting point too to see. But again, are there other problems, things that you see of the next week that can help you take the next steps in your trading. Yes, exactly. First step to solving a problem is realizing there is one. And sometimes the first step to solving a problem is correcting the faulty ways in which you're even seeing that problem. All right. So go back to that question earlier, a couple questions earlier. Fundamental reality of how the brain's wired. You're fighting against that fundamental reality. That's your problem. It's not about the FOMO, the revenge trading, the greed, the overconfidence, right? That's the second problem. The first problem is how you're even examining those issues. Right? And if you're seeing their presence as being something to deny or control, then your approach is not going to work long term and actually being able to solve the problem. Right? You're just going to band-aid it. But yeah, you certainly got to be aware of it first and foremost. How to stop chasing the market. It's likely an emotional issue and likely connected to your drive and desire to make a lot of money and to make money immediately. Right? Cool to have a desire to make money. Like that's what we're here for. But to force it to happen today, to force it to happen after you've taken a loss on a trade that was really pretty well constructed and maybe even well timed, but just got wicked out, is hard, right? So it's having conviction in your strategy that anchors you to the ability to hold, to not re-enter, to wait for the next opportunity. But when you've got that desire for immediacy, you get kind of just get steamrolled, and things get very difficult pretty quickly. Any tips on resolving the bad habits? We're consistently repeating them. Where do you begin to counter those bad habits? You got to understand what's causing them. Do some analysis. Start taking some notes down as to when they occur, what's going through your mind, what emotions are present, what's changing in your perspective, situationally, what's happening. How is your energy level, right? Analyze the situations where those bad habits are occurring. Right. And it gives you the opportunity to begin to create a strategy to not just change the habit, but upgrade the perspective with which supports the new habit. Right. And the better way. But some of it is, once you get to that point, training, right? Bad habits are very well trained, right? They're not bad in your mind, not bad in your system. Your body and your mind knows what it knows well. So, the bad habits are kind of like your baseline. That's what you're going to default back to, even as you're trying to establish the new ones. Why? Because under duress, you're going to default back to what you know well, even if it is bad, right? Mind doesn't know good from bad. It knows what it's been trained. So, yeah, it is a challenge, but, the beginning of it is just better understanding circumstances surrounding it, so you can construct a strategy to counter them. What's a good way to map out trigger points so I can see them coming earlier or get better at it in the moment through awareness? It's through a process I call mapping your pattern. You can go to jaredtendler.com/worksheets to download those. I also have a number of blogs on that exact topic that you can find on my website to do that. There's this great book called The Mental Game of Trading. Author is, decent guy, but highly recommend that one. All right, Ohi, appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Again, we're going to be back next week for our last session. I'm going to be talking about how to make sure that you're not getting your personal confidence, right? Your identity too wrapped up in trading, as well as answering your questions and helping you take the next step. So have a good week, everybody. Take care. Till then.
Put 'em up, put 'em up now. Yeah, yeah. Put 'em up, put 'em up, put 'em up now. Yeah, yeah. Put 'em up, put 'em up, put 'em up now. Yeah, yeah. Put 'em up, put 'em up, put 'em up now. Yeah, yeah. Put 'em up, put 'em up, put 'em up now. Yeah, yeah. Put 'em up, put 'em up, put 'em up now. Yeah, yeah. Put 'em up, put 'em up, put 'em up now. Yeah, yeah.